Alice, I know, international designer. How did it start? Did you always dream of being a designer?
I sort of always made stuff from a very young age. I started making and selling stuff at about the age of 11. Things I found, jewelry, fabric, prints, anything I could make, I'd sold in my parents' cider house. My parents make cider and brandy, and I used their shop as my first shop when I was 11.
So you just started making things and what, just dressing up?
So then I realized that when I was at the Royal College of Art, that I could make all my fabrics into dresses and sell them. So I learned how to wholesale, and I wholesaled to a few shops in LA and around London. And it basically paid my way through college. It was either that or bar work, so I kind of...
So it was an accident?
It was an accident. I'm trained 7 years in print, so I'm really a textile designer, so you can see all the kind of the work and the detail that goes into it. But I kind of wish sometimes I'd gone into photography and or interiors, because it doesn't move as fast, ridiculously fast.
Now, I know that last year you published your second book, English Myths and Legends. What's the single learning that one could take from that book? What's that book seeking to put across?
That was really the second book. First one I did was how to build a brand in 10 years. Second one was like, okay, what is the brand? Recession had hit, you have to rethink about what you're doing. Lots of brands were in huge amounts of trouble. What does the brand stand for? What are our values? Are we staying true to it? Do we have validity to kind of be in business? What is it? So I chose 5 chapters that I thought defined the brand. And it's just a learning curve, and sometimes you just realize, oh my God, you just do too much. And people think more is more, but actually it's not. So now I'm just trying to restructure my whole focus and my whole company into being sort of slightly more environmentally aware, which is super important, and more focused collections. And there's a whole other debate about see now, buy now, and showing and this, that. But the fashion industry on my level is certainly going through a big process of thought and change. So it's actually a really interesting time to be in. So I'm happy I did the book, because I can figure out exactly that is the brand, stay true to the message, and then actually embrace the change that is happening in the industry.
You mentioned the 5 pillars of your brand. Did you think those through? Were they always there? Did you articulate them?
Well, I thought, okay, what am I? I'm definitely British. It was called Little Miss England by my American friends. And there's that heritage side. So there was the Somersetshire. I'm from the countryside. I'm really a farm girl. I do anything to be back in nature, and that's our biggest luxury. So Somersetshire is where I'm from, and then there was the Holy Grail, which is everything to do with about being British. What is it? It's Victoriana, it's the military, it's all of those incredible archives and all the museums. It's how we use British references always within the collections. And then there was myths, the myths of marriage, and that's what I called that. It's like the romantic fairy tale. And then alchemy, because we make everything from grey yarn and cloth, so everything we design in-house is printed and embroidered, everything's done. So that was the alchemy, creating something out of something very plain. And then escape, because we all wear clothes to have some sort of make us feel a certain way. So escapism. So as I'm designing in my office, I'm actually pretending I'm somewhere else. And hopefully that shows in the kind of this theme and the references within the collections, that there is a kind of exporting yourself. It's not just bought cut and sew clothing on mass level. It's much more considered that there's artwork, there's thought, the fabric, all the details, all engineered. Basically, it's a hell of a lot of work. But that's the bit that I kind of enjoy, is the craftsmanship.
And that consideration that you apply, I know sustainability is a really important part of your story, and I know it's important for fashion. Talk me through that.
It was incredibly hard. I mean, not is it hard for the high street, because they're banging out loads and loads of stuff at a very cheap price, and cheap fabrics and horrific dyes and horrific footprint of things traveling everywhere, and a huge amount of waste. But even for our level of the market, we use the best mills in Italy, all around Lake Como for a lot of our fabrics, and even like one enzyme or one fiber can make it not pass. But it's about all of designers on every level, whether it's the high street and in ours, is to be asking the mills to give us more and more and more sustainable options. And about 5 years ago, when I started looking into it with Olivia Firth and Eco-Age, there was really very, very few options, and it was very crafty in feel. And now it's getting a bit more sophisticated, but it's keep asking for the consumer to be more aware, to understand what they're buying. And yes, Premier, they can cost a bit more because environmentally friendly fabrics are limited, and our climate is in not a good way, as we all know. And fashion has a very large part to play in it, so I feel guilty actually just being in the fashion industry because of the mass scale of things. So I'm happy in my way of refocusing, looking at the right fabrics, looking at the right finishes, making everything more and more in Europe. Once I had a diffusion line actually, and I made that in Asia, and I closed that down and focused on one brand, much more made in Europe, much more elevated fabrics, because there was just no point in doing what other people do. You have to do something that's unique and special. And I do another range for British High Street. And a few days ago, we had a meeting about how we can make that 100% sustainable from sourcing. So that's starting at the lower level. So that's going to be really interesting. But I should think everybody needs to do it. They need to talk about it. And they need to educate people. So we're going to be taking our show focus into really educating people about how our product is made, why some garments cost a lot, and the work that goes into them. So we kind of want to be the pioneers of change rather than be like a sitting duck waiting for something to happen. That is also really exciting because you can see it, and we've been talking about it for the last year. And the British Fashion Council are very up for this change because it's unsustainable. It's like a dinosaur sort of model.
I want to land on something.
Yeah.
You're speaking to the most important business community in Turkey, in Istanbul. What single message would you like them to take back from the lesson you've learned through your own business?
I think time and nature and stillness is our biggest luxury. We need to protect it. We need to spend time with our children. We need to look after and be very aware of everything we're consuming. And we've got to love what we do. Things are so fast, and we're causing a lot of damage. And I just need to spend more time with my son.
Alice Temperley, thank you.